You're listening to the Hope Not Nope podcast
with Doc Dylan
and Brandy.
We empower high performers with a 3-part strategy of hope,
Self-agency, goals, and proven frameworks,
so that you can reach your potential
and the highest quality of life. How's it going, Doc Dill? I am excited for this episode because the question was submitted from Anonymous Hippo.
Oh, let's go.
If you were listening last episode, we said that if you ever want to submit a question anonymously, we would use the little Google Doc, how they always are like, oh, Anonymous Hippo, Anonymous Rhinos editing this document. And this question was submitted by Anonymous Hippo.
I got to say that they do a great job of bringing up animals that you kind of forget about.
You forget about hippos?
Not necessarily hippos, but I've seen some wild ones on there, like anonymous armadillo. And you're like, oh, yeah.
Maybe the requirement is that it ends with an O. Hippo, rhino, armadillo.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Anyways, Anonymous Hippo has us a question. And if you have ever been curious about what to do for your nervous system, I would always recommend having a conversation with Doc Dylan, because everything that I've learned from the nervous system has been from you, and then the sources that you've given me to learn. Because prior to meeting you, I didn't really know that the nervous system was a thing.
Yeah.
So I definitely recommend having those conversations. And when you don't know us one-on-one, a good way to have that conversation is via podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are.
Yeah.
The question says, I'm a new college football coach, and in my previous role, or compared to my previous role, this entails a lot more responsibility. I promised my wife that I would take more care of myself when I accepted this new position.
Yeah.
And so I keep seeing these posts on social media and stuff like that of taking care of the nervous system. So I'm wondering, how exactly do you do that? Or is that just another trendy fluff thing? Which is a very, very fair question.
Yes. First of all, congrats on that position.
Awesome. Yeah.
Well done.
Let's go.
That's awesome. I'm going to assume that the team is the Hippos.
Yeah.
Because the name was from Anonymous.
Was it Hippo?
Hippo.
Anonymous Hippo, yeah.
I forget if it was Hippo or Rhino. I think it was Hippo.
Yeah.
But anyway, congrats on that position, and congrats on the awareness of the stressors that come in that position and making the promise to your wife. Now you got to back that up.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just make that promise and then let yourself go and coach for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Who knows how long that college coaching career is going to last, or where it's going to be moved, because it's very, there's a lot of moves that happen.
Yeah, not everyone's going to be Nick Saban, where they're in a college football position for years and years and years. A lot of time it is kind of faster turnover.
Yeah, and you look at his path of getting to Alabama to set that, and there was a lot of turbulence, a lot of changes, a lot of stuff that happened in that. But in any case, congrats on that step of stepping into the college ranks and making that promise to your wife. And now you got to keep up on that promise, because if you do really well and you get to stay in that position, or who knows what school it is, if you get elevated to a different college or whatever, your wife will be more likely to be on board with it if you do it well this time around by taking care of yourself. So taking care of the nervous system, is that important? Hands down, yes.
Yeah.
There's no debate.
Without a doubt
that you have to take care of your nervous system. So is the trend fluff to take care of the nervous system? No. A lot of the things that are recommended to take care of the nervous system are very full of fluff.
That's a great way to put it.
So we'll talk about the strategies, not so much of what not to do, because I feel like sometimes we can get caught up in the what not to do, that it ends up the person leaves and they're like, not us in particular, but as a whole, in this field, that people walk away and they go, okay, cool, I know what not to do, but I have no idea what to do. So what do I do? So I'll focus on kind of that side of what do you do?
Yeah, what to do.
And oftentimes you find that you don't need a lot of the products and other things that are out there.
The gadgets and
gizmos. Gadgets. They might open the window to take down how high your nervous system is feeling,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not the thing that's going to lead to the result.
Yeah.
So we'll dive into it, but where we need to start is what is the nervous system? How does it work?
Mm-hmm.
Because being a college football coach, you understand how each position works. And because you understand how each position works, now you can have a strategy to make sure that that person is being taken care of in that particular position. And if they're not, you then know the resources to give to that individual to make sure that they're good. So we'll do that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So nervous system, you need it.
Yeah.
It literally, you can't live without it. It is responsible for everything that happens in our body. No movement happens without the nervous system. No thought happens without the nervous system. No breath happens without the nervous system. You need the nervous system. It is the functioning of how we are able to interact
Mm-hmm.
with the environment. Now, there's different parts of the nervous system. There's the peripheral nerves, and then there's the brain and the spinal cord. The brain is the commander of the system. The brain is the head coach.
Mm-hmm.
The other areas are all the assistants. The brain runs the show. The brain's main role is to budget the energy throughout the entire system with the goal to keep you alive.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that it does that is by prediction. It has to predict what's going to happen so that the resources are being sent prior to that thing actually happening. And if that prediction is accurate, then the brain says that was a good call. Let's go ahead and remember that pathway that was used so that we can use it again in the future. If the prediction was inaccurate and a different outcome happened, then the brain remembers that so that the next time it comes up, it goes, we've been in this scenario before, and this is what happened. This is what I thought was going to happen, but then it happened this way. So let's predict that it's going to go this way. The more that that prediction is deemed accurate, the more that the brain is going to want to use it because the more efficient it is, and it wants to be an efficient system.
Mm-hmm.
So the crash course of the nervous system, 3-pound heavyweight champion of the world is the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And the other players, the nerves, help to follow the command of the brain, but also in giving feedback to the brain to let it know what is happening in the environment. So back to the football analogy, the head coach is the brain. The players are more like the peripheral nerves that are giving you feedback to let you know that, hey, that was good. We did that. So again, its goal is to then budget energy by the release of different hormones and what actions need to take place. With it working by prediction and its goal to keep you alive, it has to predict what is safe and it has to predict what is a threat. When the nervous system and the brain interprets that there is safety, it is able to operate at a high level of performance. When it is operating from a system of threat or of doubt, if it's a threat, it can act very quickly, right? Think of like danger.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can move really quick when something jumps out and scares you. But if you're operating from a place of doubt, that's going to slow down the process. It's going to make the brain, the predictions uncertain. And when that uncertainty starts to stack up, the nervous system doesn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
It does not like the uncertainty because if it can't predict it, it gets really confused on if you're actually safe or not safe. So, what you need to do to take care of the nervous system is that you have to give it safety in things that are stable.
Mm-hmm.
A college football coaching position is not stable. It's a great job. And again, congrats on like getting to that, but it's not stable, especially now in college where a lot of money can be made
Mm-hmm.
by not just the coaches, but by the players as well. And donors being able to be involved. Like it's a very dynamic environment. So your stability needs to be in something that is not that job position. The stability needs to be in that you were made to do this and that despite the circumstances or how the season plays out, that you are meant to be a college football coach. Mm-hmm. And you are at this team in this present moment. And I'm sure your goal is to be there long term, but you got to take it step by step, stay in the current moment and find the stability and how you were created to be in this position versus your identity becoming that position.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be a separation between the two, or else your nervous system is always going to be in the uncertainty and always feel like it's chaotic versus being able to actually do the job.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll pause there.
Well, I'm curious. I think you'd probably have more to expand on it with this question that I'm adding in, but there's a reality that a college coaching, football coaching position, as Anonymous Hippo said, has a lot more responsibility. But I think in this specific example, a lot more responsibility also equals a lot more stress.
Yeah.
And what I guess my question is like, how does stress play a role in this? Because it's not like he can avoid stress right
Mm-hmm.
now.
Right.
Right. Like it's going to be happening. But how can like the nervous system play a role in it? And is it what you already said about like threat and safety, or is there something else that he can do in addition to like complement that with the stress side of things?
Oh, 100%. It's we tend to look at stress as a good or a bad thing, where the reality is that we need stress to grow.
Mm-hmm.
You just need it dosed appropriately. There is a lot of incoming stress from the outside world, media, pressers, players that are making money depending on what level that you're at in the school and all that. So there's a lot more stressors coming in, which means that you have to do a better job of controlling the controllable stressors and by not adding extra stressors to the plate. So there is a thing, stress resiliency, and it's how we adapt and it's how we grow. And it's that you can take on a stressor. You've now faced that stressor, so you have a data point of it, and now you're ready to face the next stressor. And I talked about this in our book Hope Not Nope with calluses, right? Like building calluses on your hands. In order to build them, you have to have an appropriate amount of stress that starts to kind of create friction and kind of get to the skin a little bit where it's not breaking, but it's been stressed enough, and then you rust from it, and now that skin becomes stronger that it can take on
Mm-hmm.
more forces the next time. And the same thing happens with emotional resiliency or just resiliency as a whole to a stress. It's not running away from stress, it's dosing it appropriately so that you're not overwhelmed by the amount of stress, that the stress that you face can be used to grow instead of needing to constantly put out fires.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the college football world or in a coaching world where there's a lot of demands, it's don't put your foot in your mouth during a presser,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think Coach Reed and there's a couple other coaches that do a phenomenal job in the media of just taking what's being asked and answering it in a way that just repeats their question that it seems like an answer but not an answer.
Yeah.
And then you have other examples of won't mention any names, but people in leadership positions that call out a particular coach or player
Mm-hmm.
without having good rationale as to why they're called out. And now you're facing a media storm
Mm-hmm.
for a week because that you acted um, very reactively and
Mm-hmm.
very emotionally instead of giving that moment to let the stressor calm down and answer it in a way that you're not creating more stressors for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're talking about Coach Saban. He early in his career came back and he's like, "Man, the media stinks. They're always after me." And his wife was like, "Have you seen yourself in a presser?
Mm-hmm.
How you interact with them and what you say? Maybe you should change that and start using them as a resource and as a friend instead of always trying to pick fights with them."
Right.
And wow, now that became his best friend. So now he has less of a stressor. Now his nervous system is going into a pressor and from a place of safety instead of a place of a threat.
Right.
So in taking agency, one of those steps to cooperate with hope, he was able to decrease one of the stressors, which then was able to treat his nervous system in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's going to be stressors. Just don't make more stress for yourself.
Mm-hmm. I also think too, like you're treating the nervous system well and operating from a place of safety and even prediction when your coaching staff has great camaraderie. Like if you're at the beginning of the season, you have your coaching staff, you're not going to be at high stressor when it comes to that because like no one's leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're in it, you're building it together. Hopefully you've picked the right team where now there's no threat of are these guys leaving? Can I really trust them? Like you've hopefully like almost handpicked your team so there can be a safety in that world of things prior to getting to in season when there's a lot more media and a lot more pressers. Like having the people around you that you can trust complements your nervous system and helps your
Yeah.
nervous system a lot.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And with the prediction and the nervous system working by prediction, that also goes to setting the standard and the culture
Mm-hmm.
within a team. And if you're new in that position where you're the one setting the standard, you have to remember that the standard and culture may not be the one that was set
Mm-hmm.
previously to when you got there. So there's going to be that stressor of, hey, I know how it was done here before. That's not quite how we're doing it anymore. Or, hey, we're going to keep some of those things, but here's what the expectations are. But now think of what you do for your nervous system and your players' nervous systems when the first team meeting you say, this is the expectation and this is the standard. I expect that each person lives up to the standard. And if you don't, we don't have to question if you're playing or not playing. If you don't hit the culture or the standard, then you're not playing. It's that simple. You just made something that was uncertain certain for yourself, for your coaching staff, and for that player. So going in, setting the standard, that helps to treat your nervous system because now you're not weighing all these decisions throughout the season.
Mm-hmm.
Like set the standard and then you have to keep the standard. And
Yeah.
and that's one of the harder things is like not just saying it, but now keeping people accountable that if they don't keep that standard or that culture, that they're being held accountable. So the other people in the locker room see that and they start to build upon it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what builds long-term success with a team is that if we're going to not be disciplined with the little things, how can I expect in big moments that we're going to be disciplined?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember when I was coaching, the first coaching job that I had in my adult life was a CYO program, which is basically like a church league.
Yeah.
And the league that I was in was basically like I live in a city where basketball is very competitive. And so to make your high school basketball team in the cities is actually pretty hard because of how competitive it is. And like you're at a school with 4 or 5 thousand people, like it's hard to make a basketball team, right?
Yeah.
And so these kids are good athletes. They just didn't make the team, didn't try out for the team, but they still love the sport of basketball.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm coming in, I'm a new coach, and the reason that I was the coach was because the local priest knew me and knew I loved basketball, and he wanted to change that these kids weren't just going to be cussing and weren't like he wanted it to be a Christian culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so during tryouts, I think we had 2 or 3 days of tryouts. I literally said at the first day of tryouts, I was like, the standard is that we are going to honor God here. I don't know what walk of faith you guys are in, but like we're not going to be swearing. And there is literally a church 20 feet down the hallway. And we're going to be doing that by honoring our bodies and playing basketball and all these things. And I just remember, I remember standing there saying all of this, and it probably wasn't done eloquently. And I was only a few years older than these kids. I was like 23 and they're like 17, 18 years old. Some of them were 19 and still in high school. And I just remember a couple of them literally like looking at me and like snickering and like laughing and thinking that I was just like clearly foolish. But I set that standard, and the ones who were laughing didn't come back
Mm-hmm.
because they, for whatever reason, they must have known that like I was going to hold to that standard. And the kids that stayed, like for the most part, respected what I had communicated. And I had systems in place that before each game, at the end of each practice, like we either said a prayer or we set a specific intention of who we were offering up that game for, that practice for, and things like that. So little ways that a public school kid who's not really any faith denomination could slowly be introduced to this new like perspective.
Yeah.
But for the like for this new college coach or anybody that's in a coaching position, when you're setting the standard and then the response is like the snickering and the laughing, like those are not the people you want on your team.
Yeah.
Your nervous system is going to be thankful when like you aren't putting energy into those people
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah. I mean, look at Indiana
Hmm.
this past year of what they did with not any five stars
Yeah.
on the team, but Coach Signetti said, this is our culture. These are the players that fit our culture, fit our values, and what
Hmm.
they were able to do. And like to me, that is what this is about. The best way to treat your nervous system is to do your job well with intention,
Hmm.
with your values, and to do it well. That that's the best way to treat your nervous system.
Hmm.
That's the best way to give yourself certainty. That's the best way to decrease the amount of predictions that need to be made by a predictive nervous system from how it works. And that's the biggest way to give yourself psychological safety because the safest thing that you can do is living out your purpose
Hmm.
and doing it to the best of your abilities. Most of the other stuff is fluff. There's ways to calm down your nervous system in stressful situations like deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing. That's not fluff. That's a tool that you can use to help you respond versus react to situations.
Hmm.
There's things that you can do like walking away from a situation quickly to let your emotions calm before you go in and respond to it. Like there's these little levers that you can pull to make sure that you're staying steady
Hmm.
throughout it versus up and down, up and down. But the best way to treat your nervous system is by being intentional and doing your job really well because you were made to do it. So get out there, set the culture, set the standard. Think of your previous coaching positions. At some point, you had to have been an assistant and how well you performed when you were giving what your role and responsibility was. Like, hey, you're in charge, you're the offensive coordinator. Awesome. That's what I'm going to focus on. Hey, you're in charge of the offensive lineman or defensive lineman. Cool, that's where my focus is going to be. Now you bring that back to the coaching staff as a whole, and it decreases the uncertainty amongst the staff, among the players, and then you as the head coach, because they all know what their roles are, which means that they're not predicting what they need to do. The the least amount of predictions that your team has to make because it's been pre-decided for them, the better the nervous systems are going to be for every single person in that organization.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of upfront work to do, but then the long term is that your nervous system is a bit healthier
Hmm.
because now you're able to take on those outside stressors with a little bit of a clearer outlook on it versus I just got out of 3 team meetings with arguing with players and arguing with coaches, and now I have to go answer this newspaper who's here to argue with me. Like that's gonna fry your nervous system.
Yeah.
Then you're gonna have to buy all the gimmicks and gadgets to try to bring it down just so that you can function the next day. So we're much more on the proactive side versus the reactive side of taking care of the nervous system.
Hmm. I also just want to say, like, you've made this commitment to your wife, which means that she understands that you were made for this moment. Like God clearly like put you in this moment and she's in full support of you having this coaching position and that like you were really destined to be a coach here for this time for the season. Celebrating that with her is huge, but realizing that that already is like your nervous system being like operating from a place of safety,
Yeah.
knowing that like you have the support of your spouse
Mm-hmm.
within this as well, which I think is like a huge win, you know?
Yeah, if you don't follow up on that, the nervous system's going to be pretty upset
Yeah.
with you because of how meaningful that promise is
Hmm.
to your significant other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last strategy I want to talk on is in this crash course of the nervous system is that how does the brain predict? How
Hmm.
does it do this? Well, in order for it to predict, it has to take an input and then decide what the output is going to be. It needs to have previous experiences that it stores the memory of that allows it to predict a better output given a similar type of input. So we know that input changes the output. And a lot of these techniques that are being pitched on social media to take care of the nervous system, they're mainly focusing on outputs instead of what the input
Hmm.
is. And we got to take that step to go to the input because the input, it's all the sensory evidence that you face in the world. It's all the sensory evidence that you get from an internal environment. So it's things that we take in from our main senses: touch, sight, smell, taste, touch,
Here.
hear, like all these different stimulus or stressors that we take in. All of that is input that goes to the brain. And now the brain has to filter out through all of this and decide what is the most meaningful output based on the inputs that I'm receiving. It's also getting this from the internal environment, right? From things down to, hey, what's the pH level of my blood? What's the pH level in my GI system? Um, what what are the baroreceptors, the things that feel atmospheric pressure on the outside, on the inside? What are they feeling? It's taking millions of pieces of data and deciding what the output's going to be. So one way that you can take care of your nervous system is by being intentional about what you're giving attention to, right? We call it intention versus attention. Attention is something that grabs these receptors' ability to go, ooh, shiny.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, smells good. Ooh, sounds good. Ooh, look at this. Oh, look at that. Oh, wow, squirrel in the yard. Wow, this,
Mm-hmm.
that. But all these things are competing to try to grab your attention. And the more things that compete to grab your attention, it takes away your ability to be intentional. When you start to lose intention, your nervous system starts to get very uncertain. It starts to get more of a prediction of being at a threat, which then isn't taking care of the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be intentional with where your attention is going. And I think part of the question that you sent in was that you were scrolling and saw this on there, which I'm thankful that you were and saw it and that you submitted the question.
Mm-hmm.
But you do have to start looking at this as you head into the season of, hey, what are you allowing to take your attention? Or what in the environment is taking your attention away from your intention? And oftentimes, social media is a terrible place for a coach to be, especially if it's a popular team, like depending on what's happening in that organization. But the successful coaches, players that we've worked with and that we've seen, they very much are intentional about where they're going to take in stuff, especially during the season. Of, hey, I'm not reading that newspaper. I don't care if they're saying anything good or bad about me. Like that, I don't need to know that. What I need to know is what my team thinks of me and what my coach thinks of me and what I think of myself. And that's what matters. And when you're in a more popular position and there's more things coming after your attention, you have to be very careful in those downtimes of what you're actually taking in, and then you're not letting all that get to you. So another great way to take care of your nervous system is by deciding what input am I allowing myself to take in on a day-to-day basis, and how do I set my environment up for that to be successful?
Mm-hmm. You know what I just thought of? I just thought of Andy Reid
Mm-hmm.
because if I remember correctly, except for when like there's night games, he goes to bed like pretty early,
Mm-hmm.
but it's because he's like to the stadium by like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And I cannot stress enough like how important sleep is in a coaching position
Yeah.
and how important like your brain needs sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Your body needs sleep. Like sleep is important. But I think of Andy Reid and I think of like he things are going to be fighting for his attention all day long.
Yeah.
But he prioritizes the rest and the sleep and he gets in early so that he can have very intentional time before all the other stressors and all of the other attention grabbing things come up in the day. And I'm not saying like go to work at 3 a.m. every day by any
Yeah.
means, but figure out what works for you to have that intentional time to be able to be more intentional throughout the whole day versus the intention grabbing things and all that jazz because like arguably like Andy Reid's one of the greatest coaches of all time.
Yeah.
So take a lesson from his book.
Yeah. Yeah. And to that point too, and just because this was very based on the spouse and the promise that you made to your wife of Coach Reed's wife has understood what the position has meant
Mm-hmm.
the entire time and um, was very flexible with the sacrifices that needed to be made and the hours that went into it. So I do think you made this promise to your wife. I think it's having that conversation as well of helping her nervous system, because again, we know it works by prediction, of starting to lay out of what the hours of this actually look like
Mm-hmm.
in season, and the expectation that out of season, it doesn't mean that your job is over. That when the season is over, there's recruiting that needs to happen. There's getting the players to the next step that they need to get to. They're still holding down the culture. There's camps. There's all these things that still need to happen. So yeah, you're not prepping game film. You're not like strategically working on the game plan for that week, but you're setting up the next season. And that's happening during the season, but then it's really happening a lot after the season as
Right.
well. So setting the expectation of like, hey, I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to take care of my nervous system. Part of me taking care of my nervous system is that your nervous system is taken care of. And part of taking care of your nervous system is understanding what this likely is going to look like, and that there has to be the ability to be adaptable. There has to be the ability for um, you to be part of this. Like, I also want to show the team what it's like to be a good husband.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I do want them to know you. I do want to like have them understand what that means and what the sacrifice is and what a family unit is like in all of this. So now she's part of it as well, which is is awesome for players to see that.
Yeah, especially young players. Like
Yeah.
your coach Anonymous Hippo, but your wife isn't just like Mrs. Like she's coach Mrs. Anonymous Hippo. Like she might not be like a coach on the coaching staff, but like she is your number one teammate, your number one
Yeah.
co-coach. And for young players to see that, really any player to see that, because even at the highest level, we were just talking today about some athletes, I won't say who just like keep getting into trouble. And it's like, even at that level, they need to see that one, life is more than football, even though football is amazing and
Yeah.
we love football and our life revolves around football in a lot of ways sometimes, but life is more than football. And having a family unit is so beautiful and so important. So making sure that like you display what coaching is and what having a wife with as a coach is, and that she is like on this team with you, not just kind of off to the side. Like that is huge for your players to see and your coaching staff to see,
Yeah.
and your nervous system to know, and her nervous system to know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to have friction in all these different areas of your life
yeah.
trying to do this thing well, because that's not how a high functioning nervous system is going to operate well.
hmm hmm
So, anything that you would add in from what you've learned about the nervous system?
I think that we gave a lot of practical perspectives, and I really liked earlier you said, hey, this is your nervous system crash, sorry, your nervous system crash course for coaches,
Mhm.
because I think that that's really what this was. Like it was like this educational perspective podcast episode to apply some of these things. I think just a reminder of like Dylan also said in the midst of this, like having deep breathing techniques, having quality sleep, making these choices, like these perspectives and educational things that Dr. Dylan just shared is not just like to know, it's also to make choices off of this knowledge. And I think having those practical, tangible things, like don't lose those in the midst of like this information crash course bomb that we just gave you.
Yeah, it really is a crash course, and there's so much more in
Mhm.
each of these topics that we could dive into, but out of respect for time,
Yeah.
and now we're not going to dive completely into it, but I'm gonna add in one more thing into it, because
Before you share your hope story, because you teed us up last episode and I've
yes,
been eagerly waiting for what your hope story is today.
yeah, I know I have it teed up, and I teed it up last time, and I have a different one that came up, and so I'm
Oh, you
like,
get a double
I
whammy.
have to honor the teeing up of the last week one, but I had a new one that came up, and I'm like, man, which one do we
Maybe
go
it's a
with?
double whammy.
So maybe it's a double whammy week. But
Prior to that.
prior to that, one of the hardest thing I think that coaches will have with the nervous system is regulating emotions. And a lot of these techniques like grounding and deep breathing are meant to desensitize an already stressed nervous system. And before that, I think what's important to know is that there's four emotions. There's a lot of different names and derivatives that come from these four emotions. And there's people who are putting a lot of work in to name all these different emotional states and say that there's 38 emotion states or 40 emotional states. But they all come back to the basic four. And this isn't just my thought or opinion. This comes from one of the top neuroscientists in the world that has researched this and looked at it over and over and over and over again, that there are four emotional states: joy, sadness, fast approaching danger, and slow approaching danger. Those are the four. And the reason that I want to say that in there is because it makes it more certain and creates a improved prediction that you don't have to be in control of 36 different emotions. You have to be able to be steady and regulate four of them. And knowing that, I think the amygdala gets all this credit of this area of the brain that, is the one that makes you go crazy, that this thing comes in and, oh, I had an outburst, but it was because of my amygdala. And it was because of this lizard brain, and the lizard brain did it, and we've evolved with it, so we have it, and you can't control it. And yes, that is a important part of the brain. It's an important part of the nervous system. It does truly have those areas and does those things, but it relies on all the other areas of the brain. And to say that it was this one area that caused this outburst to happen is oversimplifying a very complex nervous system, and it's just not true.
Yeah.
And very simply, the hippocampus helps us store memories, but how do you even get a memory in the first place? You have to have the experience. How do you have the experience? The senses have to pick it up and then go through, so then it has to be stored in there. There's an area of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, that if the amygdala sounds off, the prefrontal cortex says, hey, we don't need to do that, and then blocks that from happening. It inhibits those messages from being sent out. So don't fall into the trap of just saying, oh man, my amygdala blew up on a player today, or blew up on a coach because of my lizard brain. Like, no, your brain and your nervous system was created very, very intertwined, very complex. And part of that was that there's different areas in the brain that help us to regulate and control and to be steady in those times versus just having an outburst and defaulting to saying, oh, it's just because that's part of my brain
Right.
that does that. Which leads into my first hope story.
Oh, okay.
The one not from last week, but the one that came up in this week.
Okay.
And part of it is just talking on the nervous system and just how connected the system is. We had the honor of having dinner with one of the top neuro researchers in the world. And I got to ask her a question. And the question I asked her was, through all these years of research on the nervous system, and specifically she researches ALS, but it was a question of, what has shocked you the most about the research that you weren't necessarily expecting? In the sense of, you have a hypothesis, you have a null hypothesis, and you're searching for this thing, but then other stuff comes up that you're like, whoa, wow, that's interesting. And the thing that she shared was how truly interconnected the system is. How these different areas communicate to each other, and how one area can impact another area so greatly. And I think it just ties in perfectly to this, that there's not one strategy that's going to take care of your nervous system. There are multiple ways to keep your nervous system healthy that will then keep your system healthy. And it's not just coaching well, but it's keeping good on your promise to your wife. It's not sacrificing your values or the standard in order to go get wins immediately. It's staying true to the things that make you you and the things that you want to do in this position with that. So that was the one hope story I wanted to share.
I love that.
Yeah. And then the next hope story that I teased on the other one, I'll share in the next episode.
Oh,
Double tease.
no,
I'm just kidding.
No way.
I'll share that because it does go with this, and it ties into the last episode with a question that Bree had submitted of finding stillness. And that's a good way to treat your nervous system is intentional stillness and figuring out what that is for you in the season. Maybe it's going for a quick walk, getting out of the office. Maybe it's throwing a football around. Like I love watching John Harbaugh or Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers.
Jim, yeah.
Yeah, that he puts on the gloves and is out there catching balls from Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
Like that's his moment of like, heck yeah, like this is my intentional stillness and reset and reminder as to why I'm here, because I love this sport and I want to go catch a football and I want to go throw a football. So like in the warm-ups, having fun with your players and like you're there because you love the sport and because you love them. So like find those intentional moments of stillness that help you recover and treat your nervous system well through the season and after the season. But really there's not an end to the season. It's just a full year job. But one of those things for myself and for Brandy, and it's just what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and you can judge it. I don't care. It's like what works for us, but it's watching funny movies.
Yeah.
Like just a quick reset where you don't have to think and you can just kind of chill and laugh and just kind of shut it all off for a little bit. And it's the best.
It's the best.
So in the last episode, Brandy shared a hope story about eagle flying overhead, and it made me think of watching Nacho Libre. Nacho! Where he climbs up a cliff to eat the eagle egg, and that's going to make him the best wrestler of all time, but it ends up not doing that. And what makes him the best wrestler of all time and beating, what was his name? Menzies or something?
I don't even remember
But what allowed him to beat that is that he went in there purposeful with a great intention to live out the mission that God had placed on his heart. Not an eagle egg, not this other thing, but being intentional with that. So yeah.
And having like the support system like that believed in him, because I think that there was a big piece, I don't want to spoil the movie, but like when he's fighting and then like his community shows up for him, like that, the nervous system then got that visual sensory evidence that like I'm surrounded, I'm supported, I can go do this even more,
Yeah. Nacho!
He's the best.
No, anonymous hippo, thank you. Thank you for submitting the question. We will be praying for your season and that you are able to stay true to that promise and take care of your nervous system. The more that you do that, the better that you're going to be able to show up for your team, for your marriage, and the better that it's all going to go because of how interconnected that it is. So, I mean, shout out to you. There's obviously a lot of reasons that you're in this position as a college coach. And I feel like this is one of them, of seeking the knowledge and the wisdom. Careful with social media, use it appropriately.
Yeah.
And that you're not getting suckered into a bunch of different things. But I think pat on the back for having that awareness to say, hey, let me get ahead of this. Let me like take care of this before we get into the thick of the season. So thank you for that question, and congrats again. Have a great week. And remember, high performance isn't just about using the strategy of hope. It's about becoming hope.
Thank you for listening to the Hope Not Nope podcast. Please subscribe and share this episode. This podcast is for educational and personal development purposes only and is not considered health or medical advice. For personalized support, connect with a Hope Coach at hopenotnope.org.